Hello, everyone, and welcome to our engineer interview today with Krystina. My name's Scott, and I'm your host for today. Before we start, I'd just like to say thank you for signing up to this year's competition. For those of you who don't know, this is the Leaders Award competition, where we ask the question, if you were an engineer, what would you do? Pupils from the ages of 3 to 19 anywhere in the UK can join, and every single person who takes part receives a named and graded certificate from a real-life engineer, just like the ones we interview. Now, during these interviews, we're going to be speaking with engineers who work on loads of different projects, all of them showing the wonderful, interesting, and exciting things that happen when you work in engineering. Now, our special guest is going to start with a 10-minute presentation all about what life is like as an aerospace engineer, followed by some questions. But that is everything from me for now. I'm going to hand over to Krystina, who's going to start our presentation.
Thanks, Scott. So I will just share my screen. Great. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to do kind of, as Scott said, a brief kind of 10-minute presentation of my journey. But yeah, my name is Krystina Pearson-Rampeearee, and I'm an aerospace engineer. So just starting off with kind of the early years, really, in school. So when I was at school, the subjects that I enjoyed most were the sciences, maths, and art. I really enjoyed solving problems in maths, and I really enjoyed kind of art and being creative. So those were my favourite subjects, which kind of led me down the path of engineering in the end, because solving problems is what engineers do. So that's when I realised that I kind of wanted to do engineering, but I didn't really know which type of engineering that I wanted to do. In engineering, there are so many different sectors. So you can work in kind of software, aerospace, energy, chemical, civil, electrical, and those are just a few. There's just so many different areas. So why aerospace? So when I was about 15 years old, I went to an air show with my family, and when I was there, they had the red arrows were there, and all of these fast jets were flying around, and there was this noise that really kind of impacted me. And when I heard the roar of those engines, I knew that kind of that was the sector that I wanted to be in. So I started looking up jobs in the aerospace industry, and aerospace engineering was one of those jobs. So that's when I decided to go on and do a degree in aerospace systems engineering. So I did a master's degree, which was 4 years straight after school. And that was at the University of the West of England in Bristol. And following on from that, I then got my first job as a technical design engineer, working on civil aircraft for 3 years. So in that job, I was basically working on what's, I guess, the nice parts of kind of the planes that you see. So the first and business class suites, which I don't get to sit on normally. So it was nice to be able to work on the nice fancy bits of the aircraft. So I worked with airlines like Air France, Emirates, American Airlines, and more. They would send the models of their kind of seating over, and we would design the seat and the area around that seat for their first and business class suites. I would then take the what we called a mock-up, which was kind of a first prototype, or what we thought it would look like, basically. Take that to the customer, the airline, and say, this is what we've come up with, and take any kind of comments or feedback back to the company that I worked for at the time. So that was really good. I got to travel to America, I got to travel to France to meet with these customers and show them what we had designed, basically. So that was a really good first job. A lot of responsibility, a lot of involved in the design work from the beginning to the end. So that was really great as a first job. But that was in the south of England, and my home was Liverpool. So I wanted to move closer back to home and applied for a job at BAE Systems. So appreciate not many of you may know who BAE Systems are. So they're a global company, have lots of different in lots of different sectors. So they work with air, land, sea, cyber, digital, and they have kind of apprenticeships and graduate schemes and lots of different routes in to get a job. I went in through the university route, and then got a job after that. So what did I do? So my first job was a flight systems engineer on the Hawk aircraft. So at the time, I didn't know what a flight systems engineer was. It's not something I just knew I was going to do aerospace engineering. Didn't know what job I was going to do after that with that degree. But flight systems engineer, I saw that and thought I'll give that a go. So a flight systems engineer, the flight systems of the aircraft are what I imagine as the kind of the lungs, the heart, the organs of the aircraft, and make sure that it can fly safely through its mission. So it might be systems such as the hydraulic system or the flying controls or the landing gear, all these different systems that need to work together to help the aircraft fly safely. So I was able to work on different systems on the Hawk aircraft, which is what the Red Arrows use. And then moved over to, after a few years on that, moved over to the Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft, which is the aircraft that you can see there, and worked on a few systems that, and I worked on kind of what the pilots wore and the helmets and things like that. So that was really, really cool and really interesting to work on. I then went on maternity leave for a year, and whilst I was on maternity leave, a new program was announced, and this was called the Tempest program. And this is the kind of next generation fast jet program, which doesn't exist yet, only just started in 2018, 2019, and is in kind of that early part of its life at the moment. It doesn't exist. So it's being designed. And so when I came back to work, I managed to get a job on that program. And because it was so early on and not like the other things that I'd worked on which already existed, this was kind of working on something that didn't exist. So it was looking at different new technology that could go onto a next jet. So that was really interesting to be a part of and really cool to kind of look at these different technologies and how we could test them and how we could make sure that they would be ready for a next jet. And then I decided, so I was a senior engineer on that, and I decided I wanted to take the next step in my career, and that would be moving into a kind of a more management role. And this is something I kind of ummed and ahed about for a while. I wasn't sure if I was ready yet, and then I thought, you know what, I won't know unless I try. So gave it a go, and then this year, January, I started as a team lead on a future submarine program, and this was kind of managing leading a team of engineers, and it's something I hadn't done before. I hadn't managed anyone, and I ended up kind of leading quite a big team. So that was really great experience, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm currently on my mat leave now again, but I'm still checking in with my team, and yeah, really enjoying managing it. Can't wait to go back and carry on with the work that we were doing. So I just wanted to say now a couple of things about kind of advice that I would give to anyone who maybe not engineering, but maybe in general, career wise. Don't be afraid to try new things. I think this is something that maybe held me back for a while, was that I didn't know if I could do things. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I wouldn't really know unless I gave it a go. And this has led to me kind of progressing more and moving further up in my career, trying new things, doing things like this. And also speak to people working in the careers that you're interested in. There may be different routes in that you don't know about, and they may be able to give you a really good insight. And it's great to make those connections anyway. So yeah, those would be the things that I would say to you. So I will now hand back over to Scott.
We are now going to move on to the Q&A. So if anybody out there has any questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll read them out. But I have the first question for you, Krystina. What do you love about your job?
So the thing that I love is also something that can be a bit tricky sometimes, but every day is different. So there's a lot of things that I could be dealing with. There's a lot of things going on, but it keeps me busy, and I like challenging myself. And that can sometimes be tricky when you've got a lot of things going on at once. So it's kind of balancing that and making sure I'm organized. But yeah, the variety, being involved in lots of different things. Working in a team as well is something that I really love. It's something that I started in university when we were working kind of doing group work together. And then it's something that I found in kind of real life in my job as well, working in teams. It's great to be part of a team. So yeah, that's another part that I really enjoy.
Because you must work with some pretty interesting people if you're working on all these massively different projects.
Yeah, and it's great because I'm working with people who maybe are just starting their careers and some people who are really experienced. So there's a broad range of people that I work with, and I learn a lot from the younger people as well as the older people. So it's great to be able to get that experience from everyone.
Brilliant. Well, we've got some questions coming in thick and fast. So this question comes from Oak Hill School, who've got year 5 and 6 on the call. And what happens if your design/invention doesn't work?
Yes. So if something doesn't work, I suppose that's where we learn, and look at different. It may be that it's finding out the root cause of why that isn't working. It may be something that is a simple fix that we can fix, or it might be something that we have to do a drastic change to. So it's kind of figuring out why something isn't working in the first place, and then seeing what we can do to either make that work or do something different. And that's why working in a team is great. Everyone has different ideas of how we do things, especially, we talk about diversity in engineering. Lots of people who think in different ways, and that's great to bring all these ideas of how we can get things working again.
Yeah, it must be. As I say, it's not getting something wrong. It seems like in engineering means you've learned something, so it's not always a bad
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Solving problems is engineering, and it's what we love. So, if there's a problem, that's where we want to kind of get our teeth into it and figure out what's going on and how we can fix it.
Brilliant. Well, we've got some more questions coming in. Some of them about yourself, Krystina. And this question is, what was your favourite subject at school? You said you liked the sciences and maths, but what were you like in school?
Oh, so I really enjoyed physics in terms of kind of learning about the laws of how things worked. And I really enjoyed maths as well, solving problems, and it was very kind of logical. But then I also really loved art, and I think that kind of leads into the creative side. I also do kind of a lot of stuff outside my job that's like crafts and embroidery and designing things. So I really enjoyed art as well as those other subjects. So I don't know if I could pick a favorite one out of all three.
Well, it sounds like you took the most out of all of them anyway. We've got some more. We've got some more questions coming in. This one comes from Gateway Academy, and this question's about how difficult it is to design planes. So, what's the hardest part of a plane to design? And can you give us an example of any problems you had with that project and how you worked around them?
Oh, I think anyone working on a specific thing would probably say theirs is the hardest job. um, the hardest, I think, I don't, I can't think of anything specifically that's hard, but I guess the hard thing is making sure everything works together because you're all working on individual parts, but it's bringing it together and making sure it all works together. And that's kind of a fun thing, but also quite hard sometimes. So you need to make sure that you are working together throughout before bringing everything together to make it easier and to, make sure less problems happen. Um, so that can actually be the hardest part is bringing it all together.
I can imagine because it seems like there's quite a lot has to come into like you've got to think about a lot when you're building a plane, I imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of different systems involved. So all, your electric system, your fuel system, your hydraulic system, everything needs to be able to work together how it should be. So yeah, bringing it all together can be difficult, but fun.
So we've got more questions coming in. This one comes from St. Aidan and Oswald. What inspired you to become an engineer? You talked about the air show and how sort of much that impacted you, but is there a person as well that sort of inspired you towards becoming an engineer, or what was it like?
No, so I didn't really have any engineers, no engineers in the family. It wasn't something that there wasn't a person that I picked it up from. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any engineering role models when I was younger, and I didn't see, I guess now I see a lot more than I did when I was younger, and I see a lot of people doing cool things in engineering. Um, but it was the physics and maths and solving those problems that said to me engineering was probably the way forward. But I obviously, like I mentioned, didn't know what I thought. Mechanical engineering was the only engineering that I really knew about because it is just a
All right.
general engineering. And then when I went to the air show, I started looking at aerospace and discovering that there is actually a lot of different areas of engineering and it's not just mechanical. So yeah, that was what led me to that path really.
Brilliant. So yeah, thanks. As I say, if anyone's got questions, get them in. I can see loads in the chat. We've got another question here from Noah in year 5. How many planes would you say you've worked on?
Um, Oh, I don't know how many individual planes I've worked on, but I've worked on 3 kind of aircraft programs. One of those doesn't exist yet, but will do in the future.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been cool to work on all different programs at different ages of their, how long they've been around. So it's been great to get different experience. Even though I've worked on aircraft, it's been different aircraft that are at different points in their life.
Yeah, working on something that hasn't come out yet that's still a bit secret sounds very cool.
It was
Um,
a really good program.
so you mentioned as well when you were working designing sort of business and first class seats that you worked with companies like Air France and Emirates and American Airlines. Does working in engineering give you that opportunity to travel?
Yeah, so like I said, I got to go to America and I got to go to France to take these what we call the mock-ups. So kind of what we put together to show what it would look like. I got to take those to the customers, the airlines, like so to America for American Airlines, France for Air France. And I got to take them over and be like, this is what we've produced, this is what we've designed. What are your thoughts? So I got to do a lot of traveling, which was really great. Visiting suppliers. In the UK, we have a lot of engineering suppliers that I've kind of visited as well. So it's great to be able to do that bit of traveling. And I guess it's kind of up to you. You can do a lot of traveling or you can not do traveling. It's your preference, really. When I was younger, I enjoyed kind of traveling to America and France and doing those kind of things, which is a bit harder now that I have a family. So I have to balance it a lot more. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing that kind of thing. And engineering gave me that opportunity.
Brilliant. Yeah, just when you'd mentioned all those different companies, I thought they're from mildly different parts of the world. That sounds so exciting.
It was
Um,
great.
so we've got a question in here from Kerry Winter, and it might be a bit of a tough question. Do things ever not go to plan, and how do you cope when that happens?
All the time. That's life. Things don't go to plan. I mean, things didn't go to plan in my career, never mind kind of in engineering. That's what happens. That's life. So it's about how we overcome that and what we do. So don't go to plan. It's right. What do we need to do to get that back on track? Or do we get it back on track or just do something totally different? So yeah, in engineering, if things don't go to plan, basically it's coming up with a plan of how we can fix things. This is what we're going to do. This is how long we think it'll take. This might be the testing that we need to do, and kind of doing it and getting cracking on and getting that done to get back onto to track really.
It sounds like that teamwork again. It sounds like something's gone wrong. Everyone's got to come together, and we're all going to decide how
Yeah,
to fix it.
and that's great because I work with a lot of I guess engineer, but I work with a lot of different people. I work with kind of people who are in production, people who are in project management, and people who are in kind of testing, and lots of different specialists. So um, I've worked with kind of aerodynamicists, structural engineers, lots of different people that all come together to make it happen. So when things don't go to plan, we all have to come together and figure out how we're going to make it work.
I like it. Just on that, and the amount of different people you work with, I like this question from Greg Nation, which asks, do you work in a factory, in an office, or somewhere else? Because with all those different people, they all must be working all over the place.
Yeah, and people do work in different areas. I work in an office mostly, but yeah, people I spoke to will be working in different areas. So we all link together and communicate well together, but we all work in different areas and come together when we need to come together. But I guess my preference is to work in an office, but in engineering, depending on what you do, you can work in lots of different areas. So you can work out in the field, you can work in an office, it depends on what you want to do really.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you mentioned in your presentation is that there's so many different types of engineers and careers in engineering. And we've actually got a question from Eve Maynard on that, which is if you weren't an aerospace engineer, what would you be?
I have no idea. I guess I think when I was little I wanted to be a vet, but then I don't think I could do a lot of what vets do. So my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but I definitely didn't want to do that. I can't stand blood and things like that. So yeah, engineering was always, I guess, from when I was 15 onwards was it for me. And I suppose now that I'm an engineer, there's actually a lot of opportunities elsewhere as well. So I could go into project management. I could go into, I suppose I'm doing more management now than the actual nitty-gritty of engineering. But I could go very technical, I could go people management. There's lots of different things I could go into really. And that's what engineering has opened for me, a lot of different opportunities. I don't have to stay in engineering if I don't want to.
Wow. In fact, and thinking about all the different jobs available, we've got a question here from Isabel Rogers, which is how difficult is it to find a job in an engineering in a different engineering field? So, what would your recommendation be for someone even starting to go out and think about becoming an engineer?
Yeah, so I think with engineering, so I mean, you can see from me, I've gone from aerospace to working on future submarine programs. So that in itself is I've got skills that help me that I can basically I call them transferable skills. So I can use them no matter what job I choose, and they're communication, teamwork skills, what we call the softer skills, but are actually really important. So those are the skills that I can use to kind of change engineering role or change job role, but I've already gained those skills. Um, so engineering itself, to be an engineer, there's lots of different ways in. You can go through an apprenticeship route, you can go to university and then maybe do a graduate scheme. There's lots of different ways. It depends on what suits you and how you learn best. And for me, when I was in school, apprenticeships weren't really spoken about,
All
but they
right.
are a really great option. Because you get to kind of get hands-on and get experience while you're learning as well and being paid to do it. So for me, I don't know if I would have gone the same route if I'd have had both of those options.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on what suits you best. If you like the university kind of route or if you like the apprenticeship route. Yeah.
So there's sort of something for everyone. And engineer, and by the sounds of things, we need engineers. So
Oh yes, yes. We need lots of engineers. There's lots of engineering jobs available. Lots of, I guess, even lots of programs that are being announced that need people to be in those engineering jobs when they start. So we definitely need a lot of engineers.
and we've for those people who are sort of younger thinking about going into engineering, we've got this question. Sorry, I didn't catch who asked it, but it's what advice would you have to give girls who want to get into STEM and engineering? Because I can imagine it's different for girls than it is for boys.
Yeah, and I know it can be difficult. When I went to university, there was only this was kind of 10 years ago now, but there was only two of us who were women on the course.
Wow.
So it was quite a shock going into that. But the thing that has been kind of really great for me is having, connecting with lots of women in engineering and having a network of supportive women. That's been really great. There's lots of kind of if you go to university or you go to apprenticeship route, there is other women who are doing those as well. So you can make those friends and have that support. There is like the Women's Engineering Society. There are lots of different networks out there that you can kind of get involved with as well. So yeah, there's lots of support. And if you were thinking about, I'd definitely recommend maybe finding a mentor as well to help you throughout that, and also reaching out to a lot of different women in engineering. They're really friendly, always helpful. I've got some great friends in engineering who we've just got each other's back. So yeah, it's great to have that network.
And that was one of the things you said in your presentation was find somebody who's got the job or works in the industry and ask them for help. Is that something you ended up doing?
It's not something I ended up doing, but I get a lot of questions now. So through social media or things like that, a lot of people reach out to me. I'm considering doing this. What advice would you give, or what routes do you know of? And it's really great to see, and that's why I recommend doing it, because you can reach out to people in those jobs and find out more about what they do.
Yeah, and I think sort of looking at some of the questions we've got left, because we've got about 5 minutes left, everyone. So you've still got questions. Make sure you put them in. But I like this question from Oren at St Patrick's Primary, because we've sort of heard about all the different things you've worked on. But what's the largest project you've worked on?
The largest project. Oh, I don't know what the largest one might be. It might be the Tempest program, or it might be the program that I'm working on now. Yeah, between those two, I'd say.
And we've got some other question from St Patrick's Primary, actually, because you mentioned in your new role as well, it's a lot about working with a team and being a bit more in management. So do you like leading a team and working like that? Because that must be different to what you said was like the nitty-gritty, hands-on of being an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I found I've actually really enjoyed it, and I wouldn't have known if I hadn't. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and speaking to people about, do you think, am I ready? Listening to, I guess I found what I did, which was actually quite good, is I phoned a lot of different people in the company or organized phone calls and said, I don't want to hear about your career path. I want to hear like how you kind of went through your career. How did you decide to go kind of people, or how did you decide to get where you are now, basically? And then they gave me a lot of advice, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. It's the only way, and I can always choose a different route if I don't like that route. And that's what I found from talking to people. They've kind of maybe gone this route and then gone back another route, and it's not been a straightforward fixed line. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. More than I thought I would. The whole year's gone really quickly, and what's great to see is I've had feedback from my kind of management that it's going really well. So it's great to get that feedback as well. That even though I'm new to it, I'm doing a good job. So yeah, that's why I'm really looking forward to getting back when they come back from maternity leave.
Yeah, and you did say you've been checking in as well because you're keen to see how
Yeah.
everyone's doing. So we've got time for a few more questions, and I like this question. So it's from Katie, who is hoping to be a woman in STEAM from St Patrick's Primary. How many years have you been an engineer? Because you seem to have worked on so much.
So I've been an engineer since I graduated in 2011. So yeah, 12 years. And the thing is, I think 12 years sounds like a long time, but I probably would be further on in my career now if I had kind of started being a lot more confident and speaking more about what I was actually doing. Earlier on. I only started doing it in the last few years, which has really progressed my career. So kind of shouting to my management about the things that I was doing and showing them what I was doing. I only really started to talk about where I wanted to go as well with my management in the last few years. And that kind of helped them realize that I do want to move forward and I do want to progress and go into kind of keep moving. I didn't want to stay where I was. I wanted to go further up. But it wasn't until I started talking about it and telling them what I was doing and showing them that I was kind of meeting what they needed me to meet that it progressed my career quicker. So I have been in engineering a long time, but I would have been kind of higher, kind of further on now than I am now if I'd have started doing that sooner.
That is some good advice, actually, because you must have been achieving so many great things, but so are so many others. So you need to make sure everybody
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah, so I was like, that's my day job. That's what I do. But when I started saying these are the things that I'm doing, it was actually okay. She's doing really well, so maybe we'll progress to the next level. We'll kind of move up. So yeah, really kind of showcase yourself because no one else is going to do it for you.
I love that. So we've got time for a couple more questions. I'm gonna put this one from year 4 at Our Ladies, which asks, what subjects would you advise for choosing options to get into engineering? So if you're at a position in school and you think that's what I should look to study, so what's useful in engineering?
So engineering, science, maths, so your physics, maths are always going to be really useful for engineering. But also subjects like design and technology are really useful. I would recommend if you are thinking kind of the university route, looking at the different kind of requirements that they need. It may not be kind of fixed all the sciences. It may be kind of physics, maths, and something else. So I would just recommend that you do what you love, really.
That's good advice. So I think we've got time for one more question, and I saw it earlier. So you've by sounds of things, you've been lucky to work on projects about what's coming in the future. So what excites you most about the future of flying?
Yeah, there's so much going on in flight right now in aviation that is really exciting. We were looking at kind of more sustainability, sustainable fuels, more electric. So yeah, I guess it's a really exciting place to be. Aviation, I'm really excited to see where it go when we think about the climate and how we can do things better in aviation. So yeah, that's what I'm really excited to see in the future.
Wow, brilliant. Well, I think just look at the time there. I want to say thank you very much for joining us, everybody. But a massive thank you to Krystina for helping inspire all the engineers in the making out there. because now it is your turn to come up with your own engineering ideas. So remember and send them to us once you've come up with them so we can get our certificates sent out to you, and then we'll hopefully see you at our public exhibitions at the end of the school year. But for now, I want to say a special thank you again to everyone for joining us, but a massive thank you to Krystina. And remember, if you were an engineer, what would you do?